Hello guys, welcome back. I'm Yusuf Shakeel and you are watching CSS tutorial series. In this video, we are going to learn about CSS Concept. So let's get started. Alright, I have opened brackets and now I'll go ahead and create a new file and I'll save it as concept.html. And I'll write the following HTML. So we have the doc type HTML, opening and closing HTML tag. We have the opening and closing head tag. We have set the title to concept and we have the body tag. Now inside the CSS folder, we'll create a new file and we'll save this as concept.css. And inside the HTML file, we'll include this concept.css file. So inside the head, we'll create a link tag and we'll set the rel to style sheet and we'll set href to css/concept.css. And now let's open the live preview. So we have the title set to concept. Alright, now let us go ahead and create 3 paragraphs. This is the first paragraph, this is the second third paragraph. The first concept that we are going to talk about is overriding style rules. So let's say we want to set the color of all the paragraphs to red. So inside the concept.css file, we will write the P, which is a selector for paragraph, and we'll set the color to red. And now all the paragraphs in this page is having red color. Now let's say we want to set the color of the second paragraph to blue. One way to override this style is by adding a class to the second paragraph. So let's say inside our HTML file, in the opening paragraph tag for this second para, we have a class having value blue. And now we are going to write a style rule p dot blue. Dot blue because we are using the class value, and we'll set the rule color blue. So now if you look at the output, the color of the second paragraph is blue. This is an example of overriding style rule. So when the browser will load this HTML file and the CSS file, it will try to style this HTML file using the rules inside this concept.css file. So it will go to the first line and it will see that we have a paragraph selector and the color of the paragraph is set to red. So it will set the color of all the paragraphs to red. Now it will go to the fifth line and the browser will see that a paragraph having class blue is having a style color set to blue. So the browser will check any paragraph having class blue will have the color of the text set to blue. So in this case, if we look inside the HTML, we can see we have 3 paragraphs. So the browser will use the first style and it will set the color of all the paragraphs except the second one to red. And when the browser will see this paragraph which has a class blue, so it will use this rule and not the first one. So it is going to override the first rule and it is going to use this second rule where color is set to blue. In a similar way, we can use ID value to override style rule. Let's say inside our HTML file, we have 2 more paragraphs. So if you look at the output, all the paragraphs except the second one is having color set to red because it is using the first rule. Now let's say we want to set the color of the fourth para to black. And this time we are going to set the ID in the opening paragraph tag, and we are going to set the value of this ID to black. And now we are going to override this first rule by creating a new style rule. And this time we are going to write P, which is a paragraph. And since we are going to target this paragraph having ID and value set to black, we are going to write hash black. And we are going to set the color to black. And now if we look at the output, the paragraph 4 is having color black. Now let us talk about the word cascading in CSS. So let's say we have a heading tag h1 and we have set it to cascading in CSS. The word cascading in CSS has an important meaning. It tells us how the style rules will be applied. So there is a hierarchy for the different styling methods. And we know from our previous videos that there are 3 styling methods: inline style, embedded style, and external style. Where in the inline style method, we apply the style in the opening tag of the HTML element. In the embedded style method, we have a style tag in the head element. And the external style method, we have an external CSS file which we include in our HTML file. In this case, this css/concept.css file is an external file, and we are including this in our HTML file. So this is an example of external style. So by cascading, we means we have a hierarchy in place for the different styling methods and how they are applied. So for example, any style rules that we have in an external CSS file is applied, and we override that style rules which are inside the external CSS file by using embedded style, and we override the embedded style rules by using inline style. So for example, let's say we give this heading h1 an ID and we set the value h1-sample. And now inside the concept.css file, we define a style rule for this heading. So we'll write hash, since this h1 is having an ID h1-sample, so we use hash h1-sample, and let's say we set the color to blue, and let's say we set the font size to 24 pixels. So when the browser will load this page, it will go through this CSS file and it will see that we have a style rule for this heading, and we have set the color to blue and we have set the font size to 24. So the browser will render this text in blue color and we'll set the font size to 24 pixels. And we override this external style sheet rule, which is inside this concept.css file, by using embedded style rule. So inside the concept.html file, inside the head tags, we are going to create style tag. And now we are going to change, let's say, the color of this heading h1 tag having ID h1-sample to red. So for that, we'll write hash h1-sample, and this time we are going to set, that is, we are going to override the color of this heading to red. And if we look at the CSS file, we can see that the color is already set to blue. So we are overriding this rule. So we write color and we set it to red. So when the browser will load this page, it will first check the external style sheet, and it will see that the h1-sample, that is this heading, is having this style rule, that is, its color is set to blue and font size is set to 24 pixels. So it will take this style rule and it will apply to this heading. And inside the HTML file, when the browser will read these lines, it will understand that we are overriding the external style sheet rules. So it will read this line and it will understand that now it has to set the color of this heading to red. That is, it has to override this style rule, color blue, and to override the embedded style, we use the inline style. So let's say we want to change the color of this heading to green by overriding the previous rules. So inside this opening h1 tag, we will add the style attribute and we'll set the value to color green. And now if you look at the output, we can see the heading is set to color green. So when the browser will load this page, it will first check the external style sheet, and it will get to know that the font size for this heading is 24 pixels, and it will see that the color is set to blue. So it will render this heading in blue color. Then the browser will get inside this HTML and it will see that we have an embedded style. And when the browser will read this line, it will understand that we are overriding the previous rule. So it will set the color of this heading to red. And when the browser will read this line, it will understand that we are having an inline style because of this style attribute. So it will read this style rule which says color is set to green. So the browser will render this heading in green color and it will override the previous rules, that is this color red and this color blue. So we have the heading cascading style, and first we apply the external style. So we have the font size 24 pixels and color blue. So the browser renders the heading in blue color and sets the font size to 24 pixels. And then we override the external style by the embedded style. And in this case, we have the color set to red. So the browser then renders the heading in red color. And finally, we override the embedded style by using inline style. And in this case, we set the color to green, so the browser renders the output in green color. So the final style that is applied to hash h1-sample, that is the heading element, is font size 24 pixels and color green, where font size is taken from the external style and color is taken from the inline style. Now let us talk about grouping of common style. Let's say we have a heading having ID sample heading, and the text is heading h1. And let's say we have a paragraph having class sample-para, and the text is hello world. And let's say we have another paragraph, and inside this paragraph we have a span tag, and this span tag has an ID, let's say s1, and the text is CSS. And let's say we want the color of this heading, this paragraph, and this span to be green. So inside our CSS file for this heading having ID sample-heading, we'll write the rule hash sample-heading, and we'll set the color to green. And to set the color of this paragraph having class sample-para, we'll write the rule dot sample-para dot, because we are using a class, and we'll set the color to green. And for this span element having ID s1, we'll write the rule hash s1, hash because we are using ID, and we'll set the color to green. So we have set the color of this heading, this paragraph, and this span to green. And if we look at the CSS file, we can see that we are repeating the same style, color green, 3 times. So we can group this same style for the 3 selectors. So let us comment this out. And to group this, we'll write the selectors and we'll separate them using comma. And now we'll set the color to green. And we get the similar output. So this is grouping of style. So if you have a common style for multiple selectors, then it is better to group them together. This way, we don't have to write the same style rule multiple times. Now let's talk about style inheritance. By style inheritance, we mean that the child element will inherit the style rules of the parent element. So, for example, let's say we have a div having class container-1, and inside this div, let's say we have a paragraph para1, and we have another paragraph para2. So this div having class container-1 is the parent element, and these two paragraphs, para1 and para2, are the child elements. So if we apply any style rule to this parent element, it will be inherited by the child elements. So let's say we want to set the font size of this div having class container-1 to 24 pixels. So inside this CSS file, we'll write dot container-1 and we'll set font size to 24 pixels. And if you look at the output, you can see that the paragraphs are also set to font size 24 pixels. This is because we have set the font size of the parent element to 24 pixels, and these two paragraphs are the child of this parent, so they are inheriting the style font size 24 pixels. Similarly, we can apply style rules to elements that are descendant of a given element. For example, these two paragraphs are descendant of this div. That is, they are children of this div. Now let's say we want to change the color of paragraphs which are descendant of this div having class container-1. So in that case, we'll write dot container-1 space, then the descendant. In this case, we are targeting the paragraph. And let's say we want to change the color to black. And now if we look at the output, the paragraphs are in black color. Similarly, let's say if we have a div having class container-2, and inside this div, let's say we have a paragraph para3 and para4. So you can see the color of this para3 and para4 is also black because they are descendant of this element, that is this div having class container-1. And let's say we want to target these paragraphs which are descendant of this div having class container-2, and let's say we want to change the color of these paragraphs to green, then we'll write dot container-1, then descendant of this container-1 dot container-2, and we are targeting the paragraphs, so P, and we set the color to green. And now if we look at the output, we can see the color of paragraph 3 and 4 are set to green color. Alright guys, this brings us to the end of this tutorial. I'll post the tutorial notes on my website dyclassroom.com. The link will be in the description, and all the code that we are writing in this tutorial, I'll post it in my GitHub repository. The link will be in the description, so please check that out. And if you find this video interesting, then please give this video a like and please subscribe my channel. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video, and like always, stay happy and keep smiling. Bye.